Keep things rolling, and I'll see you then. To get immediate and lifetime access to the full 15-hour video course, you can find a heavily discounted coupon link in the description for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and take care. Hello everyone. In this lesson we're going to learn how to programmatically loop through a collection of data within the context of JSX in order to render one component for each item in the collection. Let's dive right in. Okay, so in order to save a bunch of meaningless typing that has no educational value, I've already created this new raw JavaScript array of pet data. So right now I want you to pause this video and find the link or resource for this lesson. It should be named something like reference copy and paste, or copy and paste code, or copy and paste data. Anyways, you'll find this link and then just copy this code in the JavaScript column into your clipboard. So just select this entire const pets equals square brackets, just copy that. And then back within the code pen that we've been working on throughout all of these lessons, up at the very top, even up above our app function, just create a new line at the top and paste in your clipboard. Just like this. Now right away I want to say that this is not the ideal or proper way to store data in memory with React. Don't worry, in our very next lesson we'll learn about the React-ish or component way to store app data. For now, in this lesson, the only thing we're learning about or worrying about is how to loop through an array of data and render a component once for each of the items. Now yes, there are only 5 pets in this array, but you can use your imagination and picture there could be 500 pets in the array. The point is, we need a way to automatically or programmatically loop through this collection of items and render a pet component once for each item, right? Because we don't want to have to type that out manually for each pet. So the question becomes, how can we make that happen programmatically within the context of JSX here? Well, first, let's talk a bit about how JSX works. So check this out. You don't need to type this part in with me, but at the beginning of our unordered list within this JSX, we could just actually include curly brackets to include a bit of JavaScript, and then in JavaScript to create an array, you can just have square brackets, and then inside this array, I could have one list item, right, that says hello, and then right after that list item, I could have a comma, right, just like an array, and then have another list item, and it could say, hey. Now if we check the preview area, we see 2 list items, right? Hello and hey. And we didn't have to do anything to convert this array into a string because it's already JavaScript. That's the beauty of JSX. It's not like at the end of defining this array we had to say .join to convert it into a string. The point that I'm trying to make here is that within JSX, we are free to include JavaScript within curly brackets, and then you can literally just include an array, right? An array of elements or an array of components. So with that in mind, now I really want you to follow along and type this out with me. Within our unordered list, I want you to hollow out everything we have. So including the 3 pets that we've already included here, delete all of those, and that array test hello hey code I just typed in. So now we just have an empty unordered list. Now check this out. Within there, let's have curly brackets to include a bit of JavaScript. And then we know that our collection of data, right, that could potentially have 100 pets or 500 pets in it, it's in a constant variable named pets. So within our curly brackets in the unordered list, we can just say pets, and that's an array, just a JavaScript array. And in JavaScript, every array has access to a method named map. So pets dot map, in parentheses to call map. Now this specific code that I'm highlighting right now, this has nothing to do with React. This is sort of getting into the beauty of React. There's not tons and tons to learn about React. A lot of it is just your JavaScript skills being applied in general. What I'm getting at is we just want to return an array of elements or components. And in JavaScript, the map method works like this. Essentially, in these parentheses, you give it a function, and then it's going to call whatever function you give it once for each item in this collection of data. If that doesn't make perfect sense right now, that's okay. We're going to walk through this step by step right now. So within the parentheses of map, I want you to create a function with me. So function, parentheses, after those parentheses, curly brackets. Inside those curly brackets, we can drop down. Don't worry, in just a few minutes, we can convert this into an ES6 arrow function. So the code seems a bit more clean or minimalist, but for now, I want to actually really spell it out. Okay, so this function is going to get called once for each item in our collection or array. And the idea is that map is going to assemble or generate a new array. Here's how it works. Within the body of this function, whatever we return is what's going to get added on to a brand new array that map returns. If that doesn't make sense, that's okay. I think this will make things clear. So this function is going to get called once for each item. So within these parentheses, we want to add a parameter. We could name it anything, but let's just call it lowercase pet. Okay, now within the body of this function, we can access the current pet that has been looped to via this parameter name of lowercase pet. This is where things might start to make sense. What we want to return is an uppercase pet component, right? Just like before. And we know that we want to give this props. So for example, we would give it a prop of name, and we would set that to equal, well, we don't actually need quotes here because we're not going to actually type in a new string of text. So get rid of the quotes, just name equals, and then to include JavaScript, it's curly brackets, and we would just say pet, lowercase pet, right, the current item in the array that's been looped to, dot name. And then we would want to give a prop of species for this component. So species equals, curly brackets, lowercase pet dot species. Let's give it a final prop of age. So age equals, curly brackets, lowercase pet dot age. And then finally, just for internal React performance reasons, we do want to include a prop named key. And let's set this to equal, curly brackets, pet.id. If you're wondering what ID is, you'll notice in our array, each pet has a unique ID value, and I just typed in random numbers. The idea is that React has this unique identifier or key to track each component or each instance of the component. Okay? Now, before we worry about cleaning this code up to use modern ES6 syntax, let's check out our preview area. Perfect. We see all 5 pets. This means that even if our array of data contained 5,000 pets, we just wrote this one little piece of code, and the entire collection is going to be converted into our pet components. So ultimately, this lesson didn't really have much to do with React inherently. However, it did begin to show us the true nature and usefulness of JSX. At this point, let's go ahead and convert this traditional anonymous function into a more modern ES6 arrow function. If you have no idea what that means, that's okay. Essentially, it's just a more modern JavaScript syntax that will make our code look a bit more clean or minimalist. And again, this syntax difference doesn't have anything to do with React. This is just general JavaScript knowledge. Okay, but go ahead and do this with me. So we can actually get rid of the word function here. And then since we have precisely one parameter, we don't need the parentheses around it. So you can get rid of the opening parentheses right before pet and the closing parentheses right after pet. Okay, now right after that parameter, we want to include the arrow symbol, which is just the equal sign and the greater than symbol squished together like this. Okay, now this code also does not need to sit on its own line. So we can get rid of this white space. Right before return, just backspace up so it sits on the same line of code. Let's do the same thing here. Right, we don't need this line break and white space here. So right before this closing curly bracket, just delete that so it's on the same line. Now if the body of our function only contains one statement or one line of code, we actually don't need the curly brackets around the body of the function. So right after the arrow symbol, we do not need this opening curly bracket. So we can get rid of that. And then we also don't need this closing curly bracket right after the end of our pet component right here. So we can delete that. Okay, and then if the body of your function sits on the same line like this, you actually don't need to include the word return. It's just implied or assumed. So we can get rid of return. Cool. So that's a lot cleaner, and now this entire process of programmatically looping through an array can fit on a single line of code. And if we really stop and look at the code, it's very intuitive. You can glance at this and immediately see what's going on. And that's actually going to bring this lesson to a close. In our next lesson, we're going to learn about perhaps the single most important topic in all of React. It's something called state. State is how we store the data of our app in memory with React. State really brings us back to the defining characteristic or the most impressive part of React. And that is that as our state data changes, React automatically re-renders our interface for us without us needing to manually call render again, like we are currently doing at the bottom of this app. Right? Remember, we set a JavaScript interval that's going to fire once every second or every 1,000 milliseconds, and then we are manually calling React DOM.render and re-rendering our application. This type of setup works, but it's not the typical or standard or ideal way of setting up React. As we'll see in our next lesson, we don't need to worry about calling render more than once. We can just render our application once, and then if we ever update its state, React is smart enough to know to re-render again on its own. If that doesn't make sense, that's okay. State is a big topic. I wouldn't expect you to understand it during my last 30-second ramble. That's why we're going to dedicate the entire next lesson to state. This should be a big moment in your React journey. I'm excited to jump through this with you, so let's keep things rolling, and I'll see you then. To get immediate and lifetime access to the full 15-hour video course, you can find a heavily discounted coupon link in the description for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and take care. Hello everyone. In this lesson, we're going to begin answering the question, what is state? To get started, I actually want us to focus our attention to the very bottom of this code pen that we've been working on so far. So down at the bottom, we set an interval, and then we are manually calling React DOM.render once every second. And that's what's allowing our time to update every second. Now, even though we are manually recalling this React DOM render function, this setup is actually not bad for rendering performance. Because React is still smart enough to perform its internal comparisons and only actually re-render the tiny parts of the DOM that actually need to be re-rendered. Now, yes, this time value is changing every second, but if you just froze time for a moment and one of these values stayed constant, I want you to think of that time value as a piece of state in our application. a piece of data. Now, if we think about it, there are tons of different types of events that could happen that could change state or that could change our app data. Now, in this example so far, the only type of event that we've accounted for is the passing of time, right? Every 1,000 milliseconds or every 1 second, that time value is going to be different, so then we are re-rendering. So in that sense, this manual approach of setting an interval of 1 second and re-rendering manually, this works, but what about other types of events that can change data? For example, a user could click on a button, or scroll the page, or type letters on their keyboard. The whole idea with React is that you and I don't want to have to babysit this render method. The whole idea behind React is that we just worry about managing our app's data or the app's state, and then as that state changes, React automatically re-renders things on its own. We don't have to keep telling it to render at the appropriate time. We just tell it to render once when the page first loads, and everything beyond that is up to React. So the question becomes, how do we use state? Or how do we access state? Or how do we start working with state data? Right? You've heard me say that many times, that we can store our app data in state, but how do we actually tell React to store something in its state? Well, this is where things get interesting. So right now I want you to follow along with me. Before we start using state, let's set this up so that this actually does not get called once every second. So I want you to select this React DOM.render line, the entire line, cut it into your clipboard, and then go ahead and get rid of this set interval 1,000 milliseconds code. And then just paste back in your clipboard. So down in the preview area, you should still see your application, only now the time is not actually getting updated every second, right? Because we're only rendering once when the page first loads. So let's give ourselves a goal. Let's adjust our time area component so that it stores the current time in state. And then whenever we change that state value, React will just automatically re-render this for us. Let me show you how we can do this. I want you to scroll up to the very top of our code. So up at the very, very top, just add a new line and type this in with me. Const use state, and that's a lowercase u, but then an uppercase s. And let's set this to equal uppercase react dot use state. Essentially, the React library has a function named useState that lets us begin working with state data. All we're doing on this line of code is saving ourselves a bit of typing down in our actual code. Instead of having to type uppercase react.useState, we can just say useState. If we were working on our actual personal computers instead of CodePen, we would use require or import here. But because we're in CodePen right now, this is how we would set this up. Big picture, all you need to know is we now have this special React tool or React function named useState. At this point, let's go leverage useState within our time area component. So let's find our component. Here it is, the function that we named time area. And within the body of this function, maybe on a new line right above the return line, type this in with me. We're going to call that useState function. And within these parentheses, when we're calling useState, we get to give it an initial value. So in the parentheses, let's just set it to the current time. So a new instance of a date object, parentheses to call that date, and then dot to locale string, parentheses to call that. Okay, now React is going to store that current time value in a memory cell, right? It's going to store that little piece of state or that little piece of data for us. Now that's great, but you and I need a way to hold on to that place where it's storing the data, right? We don't just want this to sort of float off into outer space where only React can access it. we need a way to work with it. So at the very start of this line, let's place our cursor here, and I'm going to say const, and then we can make up a constant variable name. For now, let's just call it time equals, right? So we're storing whatever use state is going to return, we're storing it in this variable so that we can access it later on. However, use state does not just return a single entity. It returns an array with 2 items in it. The first item in the array that it returns is something that would let us access this current value, this current little piece of state. And the second thing that it returns to us is a function that we can call to update the value of this little piece of state data. Let me show you what I mean. So when we say const time, we don't just want one variable. We actually want 2 variables. So do this with me. Get rid of the time, and in its place, include an empty pair of square brackets for an array. What we're doing is we're going to destructure the array that useState is returning. In these square brackets, you can make up any 2 variable names that you'd like to make up, but I'm going to call them the time, comma, and the second name can be set the time. Okay, so now we have these 2 variables. The time is how we can access the state value, and set the time is how we can update the state value from its initial value that we declared here. So let's begin by using the time, right? Within the bit of JSX that we're returning in this function, when we say the current time is, well, let's just hollow out these curly brackets, right, to do something dynamic. And now, within those curly brackets, we can just say the time. Okay, now if we check the preview, you can see that things are still working. So now this is where it gets interesting. Within our time area component, we just want to wait 1 second and then update that piece of state data. So do this with me. Within our time area function, maybe right below this const line where we use state, let's drop down. And this doesn't have anything to do with React. This is just general JavaScript, but we can say set timeout, parentheses to call it, and then we give it 2 arguments, right? A comma B. The first argument should be a function, and then the second argument is how many milliseconds you want to wait before calling this function once. So for the second argument, instead of B, we can say 1000 milliseconds. And for the first argument, instead of this placeholder A, we can just include an anonymous function. So function, parentheses, curly brackets. Within those brackets, we can drop down. And now this is where we can leverage set the time. So we just say set the time, parentheses to call it, and give it the new current time value. So again, that's a new instance of a date object, parentheses to call that, and then dot to locale string, parentheses to call that. Now don't worry, in just a moment I will explain what's going on here and how it works, but if we take a look at the preview area, you can see that once again, our time is updating every second. Let me walk through how this works. So when the page first loads and React renders time area for the first time, it's going to see use state, and it's actually going to store this value in a memory cell. Then we told our code to wait 1 second before we call set the time, which is going to update that value in state. Now when the state of a component changes, React is going to run that component again. So that means our time area function is going to run again in response to this state changing. So yes, technically this line of code is going to run again. But React is not going to actually set this as the value again. React is smart enough to know that this is not the first time that we are running this, right? And it's only going to use this as the initial value that we first declared. React can keep track of the fact that this is not the first time this component is rendering. We don't need to redeclare the initial value of that piece of state data. However, it is going to run all of our other code again, and it's going to say, hey, let's wait 1 second and update it again. And that process is just going to repeat endlessly. And that's why we have a timer that keeps going on. Now, right away, I do want to point out that set timeout is not the most optimal or ideal way of updating something once per second like this. Don't worry, in just a couple of lessons from now, we will learn about a React tool named useEffect, which will let us set up this timing situation in a more optimal fashion. But for now, this code definitely gets the job done. Okay, so this lesson was an example of updating state in response to the event of time passed. Or the only type of event that we've accounted for is the passing of time. Right? Every 1,000 milliseconds or every 1 second, that time value is going to be different, so then we are re-rendering. So in that sense, this manual approach of setting an interval of 1 second and re-rendering manually, this works, but what about other types of events that can change data? For example, a user could click on a button, or scroll the page, or type letters on their keyboard. The whole idea with React is that you and I don't want to have to babysit this render method. The whole idea behind React is that we just worry about managing our app's data or the app's state, and then as that state changes, React automatically re-renders things on its own. We don't have to keep telling it to render at the appropriate time. We just tell it to render once when the page first loads, and everything beyond that is up to React. So the question becomes, how do we use state? Or how do we access state? Or how do we start working with state data? Right? You've heard me say that many times, that we can store our app data in state, but how do we actually tell React to store something in its state? Well, this is where things get interesting. So right now I want you to follow along with me. Before we start using state, let's set this up so that this actually does not get called once every second. So I want you to select this React DOM.render line, the entire line, cut it into your clipboard, and then go ahead and get rid of this set interval 1,000 milliseconds code. And then just paste back in your clipboard. So down in the preview area, you should still see your application, only now the time is not actually getting updated every second, right? Because we're only rendering once when the page first loads. So let's give ourselves a goal. Let's adjust our time area component so that it stores the current time in state. And then whenever we change that state value, React will just automatically re-render this for us. Let me show you how we can do this. I want you to scroll up to the very top of our code. So up at the very, very top, just add a new line and type this in with me. Const use state
What do you mean?
Is not actually getting updated every second, right? Because we're only rendering once when the page first loads. So let's get... Now right away, I do want to point out that set timeout is not the most optimal or ideal way of updating something once per second like this. Don't worry, in just a couple of lessons from now, we will learn about a React tool named useEffect, which will let us set up this timing situation in a more optimal fashion. But for now, this code definitely gets the job done. Okay, so this lesson was an example of updating state in response to the event of time passing, which admittedly maybe isn't the most crystal clear way of learning about state in React. So, in our very next lesson, we're going to learn how to respond to the event of a user clicking on a button. We're going to add a brand new area and component to our page that keeps track of how many likes have been clicked. So there's going to be a button that increases the number of likes, and then another button that decreases the number of likes. And we're going to store that count or that number in state. This should feel like a much more natural or practical example of why state is so great and useful. I'm looking forward to jumping into this exercise with you, so let's keep things rolling, and I will see you in the next lesson. To get immediate and lifetime access to the full 15-hour video course, you can find a heavily discounted coupon link in the description for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and take care. Hello everyone. In this lesson we're going to learn how to respond to events. So for example, when a user clicks on a button, how do we respond to that? Well, let's dive right into the action. So within the same code pen we've been working within, I want you to follow along with me. Let's find our main component, right? The function that is named our app. This is where we have our overall interface, right? The header, the time area, the pet list. And let's imagine that right below the header, we want to add a new area that says this page has been liked blank number of times. And then we will have a button where you can click it to increment that, right? So it says this page has been liked 1 time or 2 times or 3 times. And then there will be another button that you click to decrease the number of likes. Now before we actually modify the JSX for our overall interface here, let's go create the component and we can name it like area. So let's scroll down a bit. Maybe right above where we have the pet component function, right above that we can just create a brand new function. Let's say function. Let's name it like area, parentheses, curly brackets. Let's drop down. Within the body of this function, let's have it return a bit of JSX. And it's safe to assume we're going to want to include multiple elements or multiple lines of code. So let's actually return a pair of parentheses, and then inside those parentheses we can drop down. Okay, let's start with an overall React fragment, right? Because you can only have one top-level element in a bit of JSX. But now within this React fragment, we can have whatever content we want. So let's add maybe a heading level 2, and inside it say this page has been liked 0 times. Okay, and then maybe right above that heading level 2, let's add a button that a user can click on. So a button element. And inside the button tags, we can say increase likes. And then right below that button, let's have another button. So opening and closing button tags. And this button should say decrease likes. Okay, for now, this is all we need within our like area function. If you need to pause the video to type this out, that's okay. But now that we have this set up, let's go actually include the like area within our overall Our App. So back up in Our App, maybe just right below the Our header, let's just include like area, just like that. Now if we check out the preview area, cool, we see this page has been liked 0 times, and here we have the 2 buttons. Now at the moment, when you click on these buttons, nothing happens because we didn't say that anything should happen. So right now, let me show you how we can respond to these buttons getting clicked on. Let's go ahead and find our function that is named like area. Now on this button that should increase the number of likes, on the opening button tag, let's add an attribute, or I should say a prop or property, with the specific name of onClick. And notice the C is uppercase, but onClick equals, and then let's include a pair of curly brackets. And then this is where we can just include the name of a function that we want to run whenever the button gets clicked on. Now we could just type out an anonymous function directly in these curly brackets, but to stay organized, why don't we do this? Within the body of this like area function, right above the return line, let's add a new line, just like this, and let's create a brand new function. So function, and we can name it anything we want, but just so we're on the same page, let's name it increase like handler. Parentheses, curly brackets, drop down. Okay, and just for a quick annoying test, within the body of this function, we can just say alert, thanks for clicking me. Okay, now down in our JSX for that increase button, within the onClick curly brackets, just include the name of that function, right? So increase like handler. Okay, let's go ahead and test it out. So now when I click on increase likes, perfect, we see that annoying alert message, thanks for clicking me. Now we don't actually want to display this annoying alert message. What we would actually want to do is increase this number or this count of likes. But before we make this button click do that, we first need to set up that number or count as a piece of data that lives in state. Let me show you what I mean. So back in our like area code, right, the function named like area. At the very top of the body of that function, type this in with me on a new line like this. Use state, parentheses, and again that's an uppercase S for state. And within these parentheses, this is where we declare the initial value for the like counter or the like number. So let's just set that to 0. So React is going to take care of storing this value, but we want to be able to access this later on. So at the start of this line, let's say const, and then square brackets. After the square brackets, equal sign. And remember, useState returns an array with 2 items in it. So we are destructuring the array that it returns. So in these square brackets, we're going to make up 2 variable names. You could choose any names, but just so we're on the same page, let's call it like count, comma, and set like count. So remember from our previous lesson, this first variable is how you can access the piece of state or the value, and this is a function that lets us update that same piece of state. So let's begin by using like count. Down within this bit of JSX where we say this page has been liked blank number of times. Let's get rid of this hard-coded 0 here and instead include curly brackets and just say like count. Okay, now here's the fun part. Within our increase like handler function, instead of just this annoying alert message, we can use set like count to increase that number by 1. Let me show you what I mean. So let's get rid of this alert line and we can just say set like count, parentheses to call it. And now if we already knew the exact value we want to set it to, you could just type that value here. However, in this case, because we want to base our value off the previous value, right, we want to increment it or increase by 1, what we can actually do here is include a function. So function, parentheses, curly brackets. Let's drop down. Within the parentheses for this function here, let's include a parameter. Let's call it prev, short for previous. So yes, we know that the very first time the user clicks on the increase button that the previous value of likes would be 0. But the idea here is, what if the user's already clicked it a few times? In that case, we would need to know the previous value so we can add 1 to it. So within the body of our function, we're just going to return that previous value plus 1. Right? And then that new value is going to be set as the new like count within our state or app data. Okay, at this point, let's go ahead and test things out. So back in the preview area, this page has been liked 0 times, but if we click increase likes, cool. You can click it as many times as you want. At this point, let's go ahead and set up the decrease likes button to subtract 1 from this piece of state. So let's find that decrease button in our JSX. Here it is. So on the opening button tag, let's say on click equals curly brackets, because we want to point towards the name of a JavaScript function instead of just a string of text. So you can imagine that we will have a function named decrease like handler. Okay, now we just need to go create a function with this matching name. Still within our overall like area function component, maybe right below our increase like handler function, we can just say function decrease like handler, parentheses, curly brackets. Within the body, let's just say set like count, parentheses to call that. Since we want to work with the previous value, we're actually going to supply a function within these parentheses. Why don't we use an ES6 arrow function this time? We will have exactly one parameter, so prev, short for previous, arrow symbol. Let's have a pair of curly brackets and then drop down, and let's just return the previous value minus 1. Okay, let's check out the preview area. So if I click increase and go up to maybe 10 and then click decrease, cool. Only notice I'm allowed to go below 0, right?
Oh.
Negative numbers.
Yeah.
So we can just bake in a bit of logic within decrease like handler to not let you go below 0. So instead of just returning previous minus 1, we can get rid of that. And instead, let's write an if statement. So if parentheses, curly brackets. Within these parentheses for the condition, let's say only if prev is greater than 0. Okay, and then in these curly brackets, only if that's true, then return previous minus 1. And then after those curly brackets for the if, right, so if this is not true, if this doesn't happen, then we would just return a value of 0. So that way we don't let the user click to a negative number. So let's test this out again. Bump it up, and then if I try to go down, cool. The lowest it lets me go is 0. So altogether, this lesson was an example of responding to a user event by changing state. And then React responds to the state changing by re-rendering only the tiny part of the DOM that actually needs to be updated. So at this point, we've seen how to respond to an element being clicked on, and now in our very next lesson, we're going to learn how to work with form fields that a user could click on and then begin typing into. So in the next lesson, we're going to add a form that lets you add a new pet to the page. The form will have 3 fields where you can type the pet's name, species, and age. And then when you submit the form, the new pet will appear in the list. Not only will this teach us how to work with forms in React, but it will also be another great way to practice working with state. It should be a lot of fun, so let's keep things rolling, and I will see you in the next lesson. To get immediate and lifetime access to the full 15-hour video course, you can find a heavily discounted coupon link in the description for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and take care. Hello everyone. In this lesson we're going to learn how to work with forms within React. Let's jump right into the action. So within this same code pen that we've been working on, we're going to add a form that lets a user add a new pet to the list. So right above the list, right about here, there will be a form with 3 fields where you can type a pet's name, species, and age. Now we have a lot to cover in this lesson, and so typing out a bunch of boilerplate HTML is probably not the best use of our time. So let me switch tabs. In the resources for this lesson, you'll find a link called Copy and Paste Form Starter. As you can see, there's nothing new going on in this code, so we're not missing an educational opportunity by just having
How long is this going to last? How long is this onslaught going to last?
As long as it's going to take. We're there till it takes whatever time it takes. We cannot let him prevail.
It can take months. It can take years.
It could.
Mm-hmm. You think the war could take years to end?
No, you said that.
Yeah,
you said
okay.
It could, okay?
It could.
No, it could. I was not going to extend this forever war. As long as it's going to take.
Forever, 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 ever, forever, ever.
To drive the tanks because they have been killed, and it takes a while to train new ones. But just 2 days ago, or I guess yesterday, Wednesday, outside of Kherson, the Ukrainians tried to mount an offensive, an attack on Kherson, and there's a great video out you can see three lines, three columns of what is left of Ukrainian vehicles. The Russians literally shelled it. All you see is a long line of cloud and smoke where they've blown up the cars, trucks, and tanks that remain. So the West cannot supply that stuff fast enough. Almost as soon as they get it in, Russia's destroying it. And it's getting easier for Russia, not harder. The reason it's getting easier is that at the outset of the war, February 24th,
Actually.
Having you copy and paste this. It's just a function that's returning a bit of JSX, and there's nothing interesting going on here. So right now, pause the video, find this starter link, and then from here just select everything in
yes, there were thousands. The United States, yes, Biden's delusional. The way I look at it right now, I'll be shocked if Ukraine's able to mount any kind of. Number one, they have not mounted a credible threat in 5 months. Go back to the end of February, so over 4 months. And what I mean by that, where they put together an organized force, they've been supported by fixed-wing aircraft or rotary-wing aircraft. They've got tanks, got artillery, got organized formations of soldiers, and they attack a Russian stronghold or a point that Russia just, and they overrun it. They push the Russians out, and then they hold it. They haven't done that, not once since February 24th. Somebody ought to wake and recognize what this is, this notion that they're going to put together a 1 million-man army to come down and push the Russians out of the southern coast. There's going to be a cavalry of unicorns before you see them.
Right. And so that's why this constant begging for more resources, right? And so the West can sort of say, well, we're really doing all we can, instead of really feeling like, well, we're kind of dumping money and weaponry down into a lost cause, and that it will reverberate.
Oh, it's making the organized criminals in Ukraine very happy. I mean, they're making money off of the humanitarian aid and off the military equipment.
Yes, yeah.
It's getting sold on the black market. Part of the issue is it's not just that the Russians have destroyed the equipment; they've also destroyed some of the best trained soldiers. That frankly, NATO spent 8 years training and equipping. They're dead, or captured, or incapacitated because of wounds. So where do you get new soldiers? Well, you go out and try to round them up. And when you look at what the Ukrainian police are having to do to try to get people to serve them with their enlistment papers, it's sort of like, I guess, that scene out of City Slickers where they're trying to herd cattle.
Right.
And the cattle are running every different direction.
Yeah.
That's sort of what's going on in the Ukraine right now.
These are lives we're talking about, right? These are people who were trained for battle, and lives are not expendable. So when we think in the West that we should just open our checkbooks and send money and weaponry, we have to ask ourselves, even if we really believe what the media is telling us, that Ukraine has a chance, that we have to ideologically stand up to Russia, if we believe that, that's fine. But if we continue to send money to prolong this war, that means more people will die because we're prolonging an inevitability, right? So we have to ask ourselves that when you fly your Ukraine flag, that is this a way that we're prolonging suffering?
That's right.
But not only that, but the other thing that's happening to be aware of is by introducing these advanced weapon systems like HIMARS, it's a multiple launch rocket system. By putting that in place, and it's hitting not military targets, but it's hitting civilian targets, and both the Donbass and into Russia, at that point, Russia will retaliate against the United States. That retaliation against U.S. targets is coming, and at that point, the U.S. is going to face a choice. They're going to try to, if they try to respond in a conventional manner, we're going to get our ass kicked.
Well, that's
we're going to get shot down.
And that's the question I have, Larry, because we just had a question from one of our viewers in the chat. Last night we talked about that New York City amazing public service announcement about a nuclear attack on Manhattan.
Right.
And we've heard warnings, right? Sergei Lavrov, we've heard it from Putin. We've talked about the threat of a nuclear strike on the United States. And someone just wrote in the chat, they're terrified of this, like literally terrified of a dirty bomb. And we've heard rumors of this. There's been reports of this around New York City and so forth. Can you speak to that in your expertise about from an intelligence perspective?
Well, it is Russia now, for really the first time in history, has a clear advantage where if they decided to launch a nuclear attack against the United States would not be able to respond. Sure, we might get some launches off against Russia, but what Russia has put in place with its anti-missile air defense systems, the S-500 and the S-550, which is supposed to come online soon, they're literally in a position that they can shoot down our nuclear weapons. So our nuclear weapons would not hit the targets in Russia, but Russia's weapons would certainly hit targets in the United States. So the United States would be taken out. I think that remains a very, the ultimate last resort. I think there are other measures that Russia could take in the interim. Knock out all of U.S. satellites over, for starters. Russia is in a far better position to conduct the elimination of U.S. communication satellites, U.S. spy satellites, literally blind us. So we would have no idea what's going on, and we'd have no ability to communicate internally. And internet would go down. The United States would be basically back in the 19th century. So, and people say, oh, no, Russia. We keep forgetting that for, about 10 years, Russia was playing our Uber driver, taking us to the space station because we couldn't build and still cannot build the rockets. The one rockets that we're, quote, relying on are being built by Elon Musk.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Government. It's not being built by NASA. So this aspect of how space could enter in as a component in the warfare is, something I don't think a lot of people have seriously considered.
Well, we've talked about it here on the show, and I make a fun of it, but I also point out that, this whole Space Force idea, like there's legitimacy behind this idea, right? We have, like, it was, we talk about it as we want to explore the stars. But it's really another branch of the military. And as we look at China, Philip, you want to take my laptop here. So we got this news overnight: U.S. sends destroyer near these islands, in the South China Sea. China calls it illegal. USS battleship USS Benfold traveled near the archipelago of more than 100 reefs. This on top of the news that we just got from Kamala Harris weighing in and announcing 2 new embassies in Tonga and Kiribati in a push into Vanuatu, into that whole area, into Fiji. It's all about just friendship, right? Right, Larry?
Right. What are they calling it? A freedom? What did they say? It's a freedom.
It's a freedom something. It's a freedom sandwich. It's a freedom.
Like it was a freedom. Go back to that. It was just,
freedom.
China says
other
it's
story.
illegal.
I'm sorry.
No, about the pleasure cruise.
Oh, the pleasure cruise.
That China says, it's a freedom of navigation operation, the U.S. says.
Oh, freedom of navigation operation. That's all it is, Larry. That was
necessary to assert rights and freedoms under international law in disputed waters. So those are clear fighting words, that this is a contested area and we are here to contest.
Of the 3 conflicts that you outlined at the start, Iran, Ukraine, and China, the one that is actually currently the most dangerous and the most likely to touch off the exchange of fire is then in China. the commander of the Pacific Command. It's called PACOM in military jargon. I've heard expressions from other officers who are familiar with that, with him and his actions. They consider him extremely reckless and dangerous, that he is taking steps that are deliberately trying to provoke the Chinese. And again, this is one of those cases where the United States is failing to consider the fact that China does have hypersonic weapons. Hypersonic weapons can destroy U.S. ships. That means our U.S. ships dare not get within 1,000, 2,000 miles of China once they get to, and I do not dismiss this as something that's highly unlikely. I think, in fact, it's highly likely, because the belligerence of the United States in its demands and commands to China, what China must do, have been pushed back on sharply by both the foreign minister, by the president of China, and by the minister of defense of China. I mean, they're not taking any crap off of the United States. And so every one of these moves that we think, we're showing the flag and we're showing freedom of navigation, Chinese, they're patient, but I think these times we're going to cross that barrier and cross the red line, so to speak, and the Chinese will retaliate. And when they retaliate, they will sink 1 or 2 U.S. naval ships, at which point the United States is going to have to figure out, what do we do to respond? Well, if you respond by trying to send an aircraft carrier group towards your shores, they've got hypersonic missiles, and they will destroy those aircraft carrier groups. So all of a sudden, then what do? We leave ourselves no other choice but to go nuclear. And then at that point, Russia weighs in as well. Said, no. You do this, you're gonna eliminate yourself. China does not have as robust or advanced missile defense system as does Russia. So Russia actually remains all of this, even though China's economy is much larger. Russia actually holds a lot of the cards.
Our guest is ex-CIA analyst Larry Johnson. You can find him over at sonar21.com. He's joining us for the hour here to talk about a lot of the big stories. We've got a big story we're going to talk about next about the CIA and a conviction there. We're going to also talk about the January 6th hearings, some really interesting story that no one's talking about on the January 6th hearings. We'll talk about all of that. But first, I want to tell you about our friends over at Goldco, because if you have an IRA, you have a 401k or a savings account, things are scary out there. The Biden administration has already printed more money in the past 2 years than the previous 100 years combined. The national debt hit a record $30 trillion, and inflation is the highest we've seen since 1981. Well, those are all good numbers, right? And by the way, the Biden administration continues to blame Russia and Republicans for this inflation. So it's only a matter of time before the house of cards comes crashing down. If you have a retirement savings, your money could be at serious risk right now. Talk to my friends over at Goldco to see how you can protect your retirement with actual precious metals, gold and silver, before it's too late. You know that I'm a gold bug. I've been talking about gold and silver on this show for many, many years. It is the one thing that has sustained for thousands of years through all sorts of famine, turmoil. It is precious metals. So go to redactedlikesgold.com. They will give you $10,000 or more in free silver when you open a qualifying account. That's redactedlikesgold.com. And my friends at Goldco are actually going to give you $10,000 or more in free silver when you open a qualifying account. So our guest for the full hour is ex-CIA analyst Larry Johnson. He's a great mind on all things geopolitical and the deep state, the deep machinations of this federal government, and a big story on a CIA conviction that we want to get his take on.
So on Wednesday, a former CIA engineer was convicted on 9 counts of a case that accused him of stealing classified government information. The classified information was called Vault 7. And I want to discuss it for a few reasons. One, the case is strange because it sort of shoot some holes in how airtight the CIA can be and how dependent they are on basically human behavior.
Larry's laughing
right?
about the airtightness of it. We'll get to that in a second.
But also, there's this idea that Vault 7 exists, that the United States government has the tools to reach as far as it wants into your digital life. So let me introduce you to the case a little bit, and then we'll get your take on it. So the person who was convicted is named Joshua Schultz. He worked inside the Operations Support Branch, or OSB unit at the CIA. His nickname there was Badass and Voldemort because he had a shaved head like the Harry Potter villain. Now, most of the engineers had nicknames, though, inside his unit, so that's not in and of itself quite so incriminating. One guy who got braces as an adult was called Train Tracks. The OSB is a physical hacking unit, though. It's when someone wants to hack into your life, and they send out, say, a plumber to your house, right, who then puts something on your hard drive while you're going to the bathroom or something like that, right? It's that type of thing. They will always deny that they do it, that their sort of modus operandi is plausible deniability. Well, until Vault 7 was published on WikiLeaks. So what is Vault 7? According to Nicole Perlroth's book, it is like an instruction manual for how the CIA can hack into cars, smart TVs, web browsers, the operating systems of Android, Apple, and Windows, Mac, and Linux, basically the motherlode. It's like, oh, we want to get into you, that guy has this is how we do it, right? Vault 7 was published on WikiLeaks on March 7th of 2017, but the CIA didn't know it, actually, that it had been published for a year until WikiLeaks, or it had been hacked, but they didn't know it until WikiLeaks published it, which is interesting. Now, this is in the wake of many leaks from a group called Shadow Brokers, and so initially the CIA thought this was the work of shadow brokers, but shadow brokers didn't take the credit. So Vault 7 not only showed the public what the CIA was doing, it showed them the targets. And so, say one target could figure out what the CIA had on their phone, right? The thing is, this was not on a public network, and it was only hosted inside the CIA's network. So the CIA believed that this was an inside job. Now, by the time they figured this out, this guy Schultz was already working for Bloomberg in New York City in the private sector. He had had a very long and drawn out personnel battle with someone inside the CIA where, like, he was shooting him with Nerf guns. The guy didn't like it. He said threatening things. It seems very juvenile, but it went all the way to the fact that Schultz filed a restraining order with the courts against this person, and this was not supposed to happen. In the CIA, things are supposed to just stay inside the CIA. You should not take this public. Am I right, Larry? Do you want to bring in on that before we keep going, that like this guy doing this, going into the court system against his CIA co-worker was already strange?
Well, Schultz, I think, illustrates, if I'm not mistaken, he was a contractor. He was not a full-time blue badge. You know, they call them blue badgers. Blue badgers are people who are actually full-time CIA employees and are part of the CIA organization and will retire with a CIA pension if they somehow manage to stick around for 20 years. What has happened, particularly since 9/11, is a lot of the intelligence activities were contracted out to subcontractors, just like Edward Snowden. Snowden worked for the agency for a while, and then Snowden was actually working as a contractor. But as a contractor, you will hold top secret compartmented clearances and what they call SAP clearances, special access programs. So those are even beyond top secret. It's inclusive. So what Schultz was working on was clearly a SAP, and the SAPs are controlled from the standpoint you have to sign in, be read into them, sign it, and then when they end the SAP, sometimes you have to sign out. The fact that he got away with carrying this out, and he tried to portray himself as a whistleblower. I don't think he was a whistleblower. He was vindictive. He was very self-centered. The allegation that he also had child pornography on his computer, I don't know if the FBI planted that. I wouldn't put it beyond the FBI to do that, or if it was legitimate on his part.
Well, let me just ring in on that
He's got
part
bigger
because
problems on that. Yeah.
yes, so that is actually what they picked him up for, right? So they went and searched his computers, and they raided his home, and they found a server. Basically, he had been hosting a server inside of his computer, but he was kind of dumb enough to keep the passwords on his phone, which they also had. So they were able to get into that server, and they found child pornography. And he says he was hosting it on a public server for like his high school buddies, right? But then separately, they also found a photograph of a woman in a bathroom at the CIA who was his roommate. And she appears to be unconscious. And in the photograph, he's touching her inappropriately. And this is how he was also charged with sexual assault. And the woman says, I don't remember taking this. Clearly, you know, this was not consensual. So these two pieces, you know, whether or not, I mean, it doesn't seem very plausible that the government could plant at least the second one, right? Are something that the government has said that it will put on the back burner while it tries the Vault 7 case, and he still does have to try those sexual assault and pornography cases. He says if the CIA goes ahead with this, though, he's going to expose the CIA for all kinds of nefarious things, right? So, but so yes, the pieces about sort of the unsavoriness of his character exist. He is not. He had posted on Twitter that he is anti-Snowden, anti-Chelsea Manning. He thought both of those people should be severely punished. He's not an idealist like this. So, you know, but is he somebody who? But he knew that Vault 7 would embarrass the government. So one of my questions is, why hasn't it really caused the outrage that the Snowden documents did?
Well, because you remember that, you know, we talked about a little earlier about naming it Stuxnet. So the Stuxnet virus was produced initially by the United States. It was unleashed on Iran by the Israelis without, you know, giving the United States an advance warning. And then it got out of control and actually went around the world and shut down a lot of businesses and such. So the idea, you know, all Vault 7 proved was what was already established, which is the United States has got major software for hacking foreign computers and doing it in a variety of ways. So that was not as stunning. Snowden provided was that, in fact, the U.S. government is actively spying on Americans and invading your privacy across the board. What is interesting is that WikiLeaks did not publish the full, you know, they kept some control over what was released. They showed the general categories of what the CIA was doing with these hacker tools, but they didn't actually release the code so it could be used. So they showed some journalistic responsibility in that case. But this guy Schultz, let's call him an accidental whistleblower. You know, I don't know if he sent the stuff initially to WikiLeaks as for a vendetta or to get paid.
But there was never any communication between him and WikiLeaks. It does, but WikiLeaks actually had a backup that he had done. So it's like the forensics of it is still a little bit strange. But then also the fact that the CIA knew that this guy was volatile, that he was, you know, having this strange vendetta against a coworker. I guess I'm asking, how common is that there's just like personnel issues that blow up and then actually have national security implications?
Oh, not only is it very common, I think it's probably worse now than it's ever been in the history of the CIA. I mean, go back to Robert Ames, who was discovered in around 1990, 92.
Right.
He was spying for the then Soviet Union and had given, you know, quite a bit of damning information. he had all the warning signs back then in terms of having too much money for his income level, extravagant lifestyle, living, wearing the suits, a variety of things. Nobody picked up on it until after the damage was already done. Now what you've created in CIA is they're so focused upon having, the right pronouns and the multiple mixes of genders and different shades of hair color that little attention's paid to actual whether lifestyle creates some vulnerabilities that could be exploited by foreign intelligence services. I guarantee you right now, whether I'm Russian, Israeli, French, British, God, I couldn't wait to work against U.S. intelligence targets because they're going to be so much easier to recruit now than it was the case during the Cold War.
Yeah.
Our guest is Larry Johnson, ex-CIA analyst. Any final questions on this story? I mean, I think the CIA, the Mike Pompeo angle of the Vault 7 thing is really interesting, right? I mean, this is exactly what what Julian Assange's wife has said, that Mike Pompeo, who was then CIA director at the time of the leak, instructed the CIA to assassinate Julian Assange in response to the Vault 7 story. Can you speak to that at all, Larry?
I don't know if he actually issued that because it violates the executive orders 12333, is it? 12345. There are two executive orders that were issued back in the days of Ronald Reagan, specifically banning assassinations. But the anger at Julian Assange is so misplaced. Julian Assange is he may be a jerk in the views of some people, but he's done legitimate journalism, and the reason the United States is so angry at him is he's exposed a lot of very ugly things that the United States has done.
Yes.
And it's just the inconvenient truth. The real inconvenient truth here is that the lies that were sold to the American people about why we went to war in Iraq, why we went to war in Afghanistan, or expanded the war in Afghanistan, didn't take care of bin Laden, a whole variety of things. Julian Assange has exposed that. And Assange, as well, some of the WikiLeaks material exposes the fact that Russia had been communicating to the United States for quite a while about how it would react if the West persisted in trying to bring Ukraine into NATO.
Our guest is Larry Johnson, ex-CIA analyst. You can find him over at sonar21.com, where he does great writing there on currently what's happening in Ukraine and around the world, geopolitics, as well as intelligence. So great to have Larry here on the show. We've got more news to get to here on the show coming up. We're going to talk about the January 6th hearings and some startling revelations from AOC, actually. I mean, actually surprising comments from her about one big question that hasn't been answered and hasn't been covered during these January 6th hearings. Why were people letting people in the door? Hey, come on in. Come on in. And where are those police officers?
Yeah, we forgot all about that.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, right? We're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk more with Larry about Ambassador Bolton's comments yesterday on coup attempts around the world. And we're going to talk about this new variant that the mainstream media is pushing as hard as they can ahead of the midterm elections. So before we get there, we're going to tell you about Anthem Software. Do you own a small business and need help growing it? Then AnthemSoftware.com is your one-stop solution. Anthem Software helps small businesses all over America find, serve, and keep more customers profitably by providing world-class CRM software and results-focused marketing services that your business will allow. It allows your business to not only grow, but dominate in this highly competitive modern world. That's AnthemSoftware.com. Every business has a song. Let AnthemSoftware.com help you sing yours. Visit AnthemSoftware.com to schedule your free demo of this amazing solution for software. And it's a fantastic CRM software solution that you absolutely want to check out right now. AnthemSoftware.com. Our thanks to them for supporting the show. All right, let's turn our attention to the January 6th hearings. We were talking about it earlier, and boy, the ratings have been right? They've been off the charts.
Yes, for MSNBC and CNN, the networks that chose to run these, they have been a ratings boom. 3 million people at their peak have decided to watch these, whereas Fox is losing these time slots because Fox decided not to.
Right, and they're losing these time slots in some ways, and not in certain parts of prime time. But it's actually interesting to see how many people are focused on these January 6th hearings. They've done some during the day and then some at night. But a big question that has not been asked and has not been brought up during these January 6th hearings, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, of all people, to her credit, has actually raised the alarm bells on this issue. She tweeted this, and then she was out in front speaking on this, but she said, remember how there was tons of footage and evidence of officers and others inside on the 6th of January supporting insurrectionists. But then everyone decided it was too politically risky to investigate thoroughly, so they brushed it under the rug, and now we still have no idea who or what is safe. Now, joining us to talk about this and more is Larry Johnson, ex-CIA analyst. I want to get his take on all this and why this is being kept quiet. But first, I want to play this soundbite from AOC on the footsteps of the Capitol, talking about this exact issue. Listen to her as she's approached by a reporter to talk about this. Watch.
These insurrectionists,
like Antifa,
and that there were actual officers working with this, and we never got to the bottom of that, and we never got any answers about that, and then to this day we're just supposed to pretend that that never happened. I have no idea what happened to the people on the inside who were very clearly sympathetic with what was going on and opening the doors wide open for that. And I'm supposed to sit here and pretend like none of that ever happened, and then right afterwards you have a massive, you just have this idea that throwing money at that problem is going to make it go away without any accountability. And so this is where these things are breaking down. We're not safe. And it's not just about members of Congress not being safe. The food staff workers aren't safe. The janitors aren't safe. Like, we need to get to the bottom of this. So that's all I got to say.
So you hear someone in the background yelling, well, you could burn some buildings down like Antifa or Black Lives Matter, and of course trying to get her to raise that up. But I think she raises a good point, right? As we watched this unfold on this show that afternoon, we did live coverage on the show, and we were watching, and we were saying, wait a minute, did that just happen? Did we literally see Capitol Police and other, who knows who they were, pulling back the barricades and allowing people into the Capitol building? People taking selfies.
Well, there were other videos.
Yeah, go ahead, David.
There were other videos that I've seen that completely have disappeared. Like, there were videos remember when we saw the people handing sticks out of the windows from inside? And then you can't find that video anymore.
Yeah,
anyway.
Yeah, to even try to find video for tonight's show, to try to find it, good luck finding it.
Yeah.
Like, good luck finding this video. And this has not come up during the January 6th hearing. So ex-CIA analyst Larry Johnson is joining us right now to talk about this. Larry, what's your take on that? Why has this question not come up during the hearings?
It's real simple. If they dig into it, they're going to discover that the entire thing was a setup. It was encouraged by the FBI. I mean, Ray Epps is the number one case in point. He's the poster child for this. Former, retired member of the Marine Corps, lives, I believe, in Arizona. They've got him on video, repeatedly on video, not just once, but multiple times, inciting the crowd, telling the crowd they needed to go into the Capitol, they needed to attack the Capitol.
Right.
And so when you've got someone like that who's out openly saying it, and then what has happened to him? Nothing. They put a 69-year-old grandmother with cancer into prison for 60 days just because she walked into Capitol. Ray Epps, who was literally encouraging, and they got one scene of him at one of the police barriers where he's whispering in the ear of someone, and then the kid then goes and actually attacks those police, and they get through there with force. But Epps should have been picked up, arrested, and charged if this was in fact, if he was acting on his own. But he was not acting on his own. There is other ample evidence that there were undercover operatives placed in the crowd to try to incite and create this incident. What is fascinating too is the fact that you do have on the multiple videotapes where the police just have these people come in. They don't try at all to resist them. And the one guy, he's from my neck of the woods here in Florida, Jason, the buffalo, the guy wearing the buffalo headdress with the horns. When he comes strolling into the House chamber, there's a police officer, Capitol police officer with him. They're having sort of a pleasant chat, and the guy's just keeping tabs, make sure nobody does anything destructive. Despite the meme that the Democrats have tried to present, and some Republicans, Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger, that this was a violent crowd. It was not a violent crowd. They didn't kill anybody. The only person actually murdered that day was Ashley Babbitt, an Air Force veteran who was shot by a Capitol Hill policeman. And I'm a certified firearms instructor. That guy is a clown. He should never have in his hands. You don't pull a gun and point it at somebody that is not posing a direct threat, an imminent threat to your life. Ashley Babbitt did not have a weapon in her hand. She had no means of causing him physical harm. That he pulls a live firearm, points it at her, shoots her.
Yeah, through a wall, through a window, through a wall, through a barricade.
Through a window. She'd come through the window there.
Yeah.
I thought there was an officer who was suffocated and beaten.
That happened. Well,
Actually, the officer, one of them had a stroke. He died 2 days later. It was natural causes. And none of the officers that claimed that they were attacked or suffocated, in fact, were by the protesters. That was just, in fact, there's other video that's emerged, and Gateway Pundit's done a good job of publishing a lot of this. It shows the police. There's another woman, I think her name is Rachel. She was physically beaten and she died. But they show them before the Capitol cops surrounding her and just clubbing her, and then she suffered a heart attack and died.
So the Capitol Police question, Larry. I mean, she brings that up. She says, for us to just throw money at that, that's going to solve the problem.
Right.
It's a good question, right? I mean, so if you just throw money at the Capitol Police problem, is that going to solve what actually happened that day? People who were letting people in different doors, pulling back barricades.
Well, remember, Donald Trump contacted Nancy Pelosi and said he was willing to send the National Guard there. Pelosi turned him down. She didn't want the National Guard up on Capitol Hill. I mean, that's a fact. So the fact that the Democrat leadership deliberately shied away from taking measures to defend the Capitol, gives more credence to the suggestion that they were complicit, at least in some measure, in allowing that to happen. It's not to the extent they were actively cooperating with the FBI and the Department of Justice. What we do know is that the intelligence warning that was passed to the Capitol Hill Police made it very explicit that they expected the possibility of trouble the next day, and that precautions should have been taken, and were not.
Yeah, that's
the heart of it. I don't know if you remember, Clayton. I don't know if it was the following day or whatever, but I was skeptical when I was how did they get Time magazine quality photos of these people inside? It was they were perfectly posed with the flag out, and I was that alone made me skeptical.
Well, you had the photographers right alongside of them. They were standing side by side, walking right in. We saw the video, of course, of the Capitol Police taking selfies with some of them, and giving fist bumps and stuff as they were going in. And to Larry's point, they had this intelligence ahead of time, and they didn't do anything to stop it.
So, I mean, the social media framing of this is that those were just Trump supporters who were sympathetic to the cause of overturning the election, when in fact, what you are suggesting here is that it was more inside than just some sort of people expressing their politics who worked for the Capitol Police.
And what about the pipe bomb side of this, Larry? What about that angle? Where's the discussion about that?
That has gone away. We don't know who did it. They had some good film coverage of it, video coverage.
Right.
It was planted, I believe, at the DNC headquarters, which is just what is that? East of the Capitol, east of the House office buildings. So, that they've got the clear video of this guy and on a cell phone. The FBI and the Capitol Police, they all have the capability to gather phone records and then through triangulation figure out who is making calls at that time in that area. Now, if they've done that, they haven't released the results, but they certainly should have been able to find out who was calling and who that person was. And they're either hiding it deliberately or they didn't do the work.
I mean, there's a lot of hypocrisy around this, obviously, the focus on this and the fact that we still have not really had much discussion and we have not had condemnation from the White House on assassination attempts towards Supreme Court justices. And so, and the massive dragnet that unfolded on after January 6th, as you mentioned, arresting grandmothers and so forth, and yet we still don't know about the pipe bomb question. We still don't know about like the Capitol Police involvement in this, or the other police involvement, law enforcement involvement in it, and yet we have people showing up to Supreme Court justices' homes, and there's been no condemnation from the White House on this.
Well, and apart from the fact that many that literally they so-called trespassed on the people's house. How can people who are American citizens trespass on a house that is theirs? That's question number one. But more importantly, they've been held in prison without bond, some for more than a year and a half. This is the kind of treatment that the Soviets used to do to Jewish dissidents in the Soviet Union and would hold them without charge, hold them in the prisons, in the gulags. Now I've lived long enough to see the United States behaving like the old Soviet state, where we've got political prisoners. In fact, we have more political prisoners now in the United States than Russia holds. Russia has a total of 303. They're holding over 700 people just from this January 6th incident. And none of them killed, struck, or hit police. They went in, they trespassed on the building. It's just what's happened.
Yeah. Well, our guest is ex-CIA analyst Larry Johnson. We've got more news to get to here on the show. We're going to talk about what's happening with Ambassador John Bolton and the fallout from his comments on these coups around the world. We'll get there. We're also going to talk about this new ninja variant. But first, you want to tell us about our friends over at Audible?
Sure. So, it is road trip season. You may know this already. And perhaps you are looking for a way to pass the time. I want to tell you about our friends over at Audible, because Audible is a great way to get some reading in for either entertainment purposes or research or just to make you a little bit smarter. You know, when you're always on the go and you have time to listen to things, that's where Audible comes in. They offer an incredible selection of audiobooks across every genre, from bestsellers and new releases to celebrity memoirs, mysteries and thrillers, motivation, wellness, business, and more. In fact, this weekend I'm taking a road trip with my mom, and I downloaded a classic Agatha Christie because I thought that maybe that would be fun for she and I. You'll discover exclusive Audible originals from top celebrities, renowned experts, and exciting new voices in audio. As an Audible member, you can choose one title per month to keep from their entire catalog, including the bestsellers and new releases. All Audible members get access to a growing selection of audiobooks, Audible originals, and podcasts that are included with your membership. You can listen all you want and get more added every month. So let Audible help you discover new ways to laugh, be inspired, or entertained. New members can try it for free for 30 days if you visit audible.com/redacted or text the word redacted to 500-500. That's audible.com/redacted or text redacted to 500-500 to try Audible for free for 30 days. Once again, that's audible.com/redacted.
Well, let's talk about how the United States creates and tries to overthrow governments around the world, and has been doing that for decades. We are joined by ex-CIA analyst Larry Johnson, who knows a thing or two, perhaps, about government involvement in coup attempts around the world. And we want to get Larry's take on what Ambassador John Bolton had to say in an interview with Jake Tapper on CNN. Now, we talked a little bit about this last night, and I was actually pretty stunned when we did this story because there was a good, healthy grouping of our audience that was actually stunned and surprised that a former ambassador was admitting that, yes, in fact, he was involved in assassination attempts and coup attempts of foreign leaders, as if the United States doesn't do this. A good portion of our audience, of course, was saying we've been living under a rock. But I think we all have this sort of innocence about us where we like to believe the United States doesn't do this. And so when Ambassador Bolton said this, it all left us a little bit stunned. Watch.
I don't know that I agree with you, to be fair, with all due respect. One doesn't have to be brilliant to attempt a coup.
I disagree with that. As somebody who has helped plan coup d'etat, not here, but other places, it takes a lot of work, and that's not what he did. It was just stumbling around from one idea to another. Ultimately, he did unleash the rioters at the Capitol. As to that, there's no doubt.
So, I was actively involved in coups, and as we said last night, I do want to play the second part of this because Jake Tapper did follow up on this and did actually press him on this question. Wait a minute, you were actively involved in coups? Will you talk more about that? Here's what he had to say.
To anathematize the rest of the Republican Party, and that's unacceptable.
I do want to ask a follow-up. When we were talking about what is capable, what you need to do to be able to plan a coup, and you cited your expertise having planned coups.
I'm not going to get into the specifics, but...
Successful coups?
Well, I wrote about Venezuela in the book, and it turned out not to be successful. Not that we had all that much to do with it, but I saw what it took for an opposition to try and overturn an illegally elected president, and they failed. The notion that Donald Trump was half as competent as the Venezuelan opposition is laughable. But I think there's another...
I feel like there's other stuff you're not...
Yeah, there's some other stuff you're not telling us, he says. Yeah, there's some stuff I'm not telling you. So, Larry, when you watched those comments, what was your kind of initial thought on that? And then we'll kind of unpack what he's not telling us.
Bolton is a buffoon. I mean, he is a highly credentialed fool. This is, he thinks he did a great job with planning the coup in Venezuela that went nowhere and did nothing. Complete failure. There was a time when the CIA was actively involved overthrowing governments. In the 1950s, overthrew the government of Arbenz and Guatemala, and overthrew the ruler of Iran, who was then replaced by the Shah of Iran. So in both cases, it was serving financial interests beneficial to the United States. The United States tried and failed repeated efforts to take out Fidel Castro and eliminate Cuba. I know even though in popular mythology, the U.S. is viewed as having played a central role in the coup that ousted Salvador Allende of Chile in 1973, the fact of the matter was that was carried out by the Chilean military. They sort of locked the CIA up and the U.S. Embassy and kept them out of the way and just said, oh yeah, thanks for your suggestions, we'll take care of it. They involved in multiple changes of government there. We were involved with replacing government leadership in Iraq and helping shape who was going to control the country. So, and then we tried to take out Bashar Assad in Syria, one of the latest ones. So the United States has a pretty lousy track record for replacing governments and creating something better in its place. It's just like the question of sanctions. We keep imposing economic sanctions on countries. Please show me one example, just one, where that's worked. Where the sanctions have brought the changes that have put us in charge and given us the power and control we wanted. It hasn't happened. And yet we keep doing it over and over, which, is it Einstein's definition of insanity, that you keep doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different outcome?
Right.
Bolton was my neighbor. He lived literally, I was on Burning Tree Road, go up, hang a right on Bradley, hang a left on the next road, house up middle of the road, right there. He was out shoveling snow one day. I missed my chance to run him over. It would
With
have been
your
a service to
snowblower,
mankind.
surely.
Yes, it would have saved us wars, perhaps. It would have saved us overthrow assassination attempts. And so, Jake Tapper didn't push him on it really at all. He just sort of asked that question, didn't really push him on it too much on it. But, Max Blumenthal at the Gray Zone, of course, interviewed Nicolas Maduro, who was the target of that assassination. And Nicolas says, yeah, it was ordered by John Bolton. Listen.
Now, a year ago, it'll be a year in August, there was the attempt. I can tell you that today I have proof that the assassination attempt was ordered by John Bolton in the White House.
You're saying John Bolton personally commanded an assassination attempt against you?
And he waited for the results in the White House. If you dig deeper, you'll see it someday. The proof will come out how John Bolton, in coordination with then Colombian President Juan Manuel Santos, and they gave the task to Julio Borges, a former legislator in Venezuela.
Larry, your thoughts on that? That's pretty amazing.
I think it's plausible. I wouldn't put it past, Bolton's dumb enough to try to do something like that. We're terrible at playing chess, and what I mean by that is, when you make a move, you need to anticipate what the counter move will be, and then you need to be prepared to make your move to that counter move, and then what their counter move will be to your counter move, and play it out for 4 or 5 levels, because you're never quite sure where that first move is going to lead. Well, okay, killing Maduro, made them feel good, and I have no doubt that Bolton may have been able to sell that to Donald Trump, but again, with Bolton puffing himself up as this kind of self-importance, and I plan and run coups. Well, you obviously haven't planned and run them very well, because you can't point to one recent success on his part. The other coup I forgot to mention that had nothing to do with Bolton, but did have to do with Obama, was the coup in Ukraine, which ousted Poroshenko, I believe, was the president at the time. He was ousted in February 2014. And again, that move has unleashed a civil war, has resulted in the deaths of tens of thousands of civilians, and now God knows how many Ukrainian soldiers have died as a result of this war.
Yeah,
Yes.
and we saw the involvement of Victoria Nuland, of course, and installing this puppet regime. And, of course, we saw the fallout of that. So have we ever had, what were you going to say? I was going to say, have we ever had, like, a successful coup, like, that's actually worked and benefited somehow the United States?
I think that's not how, human life works, right?
I guess
We're
that's
not
the
really
question,
supposed
right?
to live by the
they
iron
took
fist
over the
of these
American
governments.
government pretty much. Would that be considered a coup?
I guess, yeah. They run the whole deep state, right? I mean, I guess that worked.
How's that working out now with almost 10% inflation, declining wages, the layoffs mounting in the United States on both the real estate, car possessions, repossessions going up? Yeah, that's big.
Yeah, but Larry, the job numbers are the highest they've.
Shortages.
The job numbers are the highest they've ever been, Larry. What are you talking about?
Right.
Yes.
Buried in the statistics that came out yesterday was the fact that the wages in the inflation that took place under the pandemic, wages were going up even though prices were going up with inflation. What was that revealed in the statistics that came out yesterday is that in fact wages are dropping, and they had the highest level of unemployment claims filed today. I don't know if you saw that news. That came out today. So this thing is turning, and it's not turning in a good direction.
Yeah, some big, we can talk about this. Let's talk about this new push, right? Because this is where the corporate media right now, and where the White House is hoping for in the fall, because there's big trouble for Democrats right now as they head into this midterm election. New polls out today show that President Biden's confidence level is at the worst for an American president in U.S. history, ever. Right? They were talking about this with Trump. No, it's worse ever We've never seen poll numbers this low for an American president on the confidence level. This cannot be good come November. Even the words Jimmy Carter, of course, have been thrown around over the past number of months, a lot by media figures. Here's Neil Cavuto, my old colleague at Fox, Neil Cavuto, asking White House advisor Jared Bernstein about Jimmy Carter being thrown around. Listen.
Do you guys ever start feeling like it's Jimmy Carter deja vu? And that's where we're headed.
I think the difference there is between the kind of stagflation they were facing and the very different, in many ways more nuanced economy we're facing. You know, you like to focus on the headwinds, and I get it. If it bleeds, it leads. I understand that.
No, I focus on reality, Jared. I focus on the numbers. I have no political agenda here. I just look at the data, and the data doesn't look encouraging, right?
Well, that's because you're choosing which data to exclusively look at here.
I think I gave you 11 pieces of data. So look, the headline and the core inflation are, to quote the president, unacceptably high. Okay. So that is absolutely a relevant data point for you to bring to the table as you have.
So how do you stop this bleeding? How do you rally voters in time for a midterm election? Well, you enlist the power of the corporate media to start scaring voters into thinking that there's a new, more dangerous COVID variant that's out there coming in time just for the election. They're literally calling it like the midterm variant now. Over the past 24 hours, you may have noticed the corporate media is trying to scare us all with new, most dangerous, the dangerous headlines. Look at this. This is the Daily Beast headline. This new Ninja COVID variant is the most dangerous one yet. And the Today Show pushing this new variant. Who better to ask than White House Dr. Ashish Jha, who is the COVID coordinator. Here's how the Today Show tackled this morning. Watch.
Let's move now to new worries about COVID and a summer surge driven by a highly transmissible new variant. So in the last 2 weeks, COVID cases, hospitalizations, and deaths all up. So is this the beginning of a new wave? Well, we've got just the man to ask. Dr. Ashish Jha is at the White House. He's the COVID-19 response coordinator. Dr. Jha, good morning. Good to see you. Okay, so let's break this down. So what is the cause of this surge? Is it that this variant is so elusive that sometimes even the shots and boosters can't get it? Is it that we have waning immunity? We got our shots so long ago that we're due for a booster? Which is it?
Yeah, great questions. Actually, a bit of both, right? So what we know is BA.5 is highly immune evasive, meaning you could have been infected 3 months ago, and we're seeing a lot of people who got infected recently getting now reinfected. People who got a booster or a vaccine shot last year are getting breakthrough infections. So the key message from this right now is if you've not gotten a shot in 2022, especially if you're over 50, you got to go out and get one because that's the best way to protect yourself.
There you go. I mean, Larry Johnson, ex-CIA analyst with us. David's here. Natalie's here. I mean, this is. So you may have already had it. Just got to keep running out, getting more boosters. I saw an article yesterday that said Big Pharma is upset because they can't figure out how to monetize long COVID.
Right.
COVID.
Yeah.
They can't figure it out. So what do? I guess you keep pushing this new strain, right?
So you think that it's politically convenient to have another round of the pandemic for the losing party. And, recent memory would support that because during the pandemic, we had so many stimulus bills that were so good for politicians. And the pandemic was, if nothing else, for many very... team building, right? We believed we were all in it together. We did things for other people that were inconvenient for us, right? Thinking that we were being altruistic. So you're saying it's very conveniently timed to have a resurgence.
That's my feeling on it, and I think I'll ask Larry and David this question. I mean, I think that's a great point, right? I hadn't really thought about the stimulus side of this, but remember Donald Trump. Remember the effects in the election, Larry, right? That when those checks were hitting people's wallets and it said Donald Trump on the check, and they were asking voters in Florida, down in your neck of the woods, about that, there were people who literally thought Donald Trump had sent them a check, and it actually reflected in the election results.
Well, this go around, that dog ain't gonna hunt, and here's why. 2 years ago, you could get away with saying, hey, you got to get vaccinated, and even get that booster, it's going to keep you from getting sick. But people are smart enough now to recognize that, hey, Dr. Fauci, who's had 2 vaccinations and 2 boosters, he got the COVID. So comedians like Jeff Dunham have now begun, and Dunham's a ventriloquist, and he's got a dummy that looks an awful lot like Joe Biden. And he's got that dummy doing a press conference explaining why you need to get more COVID shots. And it's pure comedy, and yet Dunham doesn't have to make anything up. It's just like, okay, do you have to wear one mask? Yeah, wear one. How about two? Yeah, wear two. Yeah, well, how about three? Yeah, wear three. You need a mask? Well, no, not necessarily. Well, why do I need the vaccine? Well, they keep you from getting sick. But you had the vaccine and you got sick, yes. But so why do I get the vaccine? Well, keep you from getting, it's just, now, people, I remember I had arguments with people about wearing masks 2 years ago. I worked my way through college as a respiratory therapy technician. So I had some background in this, and my wife ran the critical care unit at the National Institutes of Health. She knows that little creep, Fauci. We knew what was necessary from a medical standpoint. Well, the same person who was arguing with me 2 years ago about, oh my God, I got to have a mask to protect myself, now goes, I agree, we don't need it.
Yes.
We had the ultimate test.
Nowadays, you can be a COVID denier without being a COVID denier, right? We all can sort of agree that the mask may not be the level of protection we all thought it was. I'm reading this article right now that says that that the current immunities on the market don't actually address Omicron, right? So we all know this now. Right. So there's not so much you're not a crazy, person for saying I'm not going along with these things anymore.
And Larry, you're saying we have the biggest test case ever, right?
Yeah, but if you compare Florida and New York, that's here you have empirical evidence. New York, mask mandate, wear it everywhere, wear it to bed, wear it to the bathroom. Florida, no mask mandate. If the masks work to prevent COVID infection, you would expect that New York would far lower, the rate of infection in Florida would be far higher. Well, that's not what happened. They had basically roughly the same infection rates, with the difference being when you put in the algorithm for the fact that the population in Florida is the second oldest in the United States. The only other state with an older population is Maine. When you account for the number of, I'm a youngster here, I'm 67. When you got the number of 75, 80, 90-year-olds running around, and the fact that, some of them died, they're going to die anyway, but you adjust for that, it just shows that the mask did nothing. It did nothing, because you don't have to do some massive global study. Here you had 2 states, and they show the similar thing of having lots of visitors coming in from other countries and other places. And in Florida, it's Miami and Orlando. In New York, it's New York City. So it's just, people are now, they're getting attuned to the realities, to the facts. And we're not going to let the government, fool them again. You get fooled once,
and that's
not going to get fooled
And that's what
twice.
I was going to say. So it's like when it first happened, there was too many unknowns, and people were rightfully scared. I was concerned too. And then, fortunately, there were some smart people out there telling information. And no matter, the social media tried very hard. These big tech companies tried very hard to suppress this information. But thanks to social media, we were able to get that information. And so now when I do polls on our channel, asking if people are going to partake in the next version or whatever, the boosters or whatever, out of 90 to 100,000 votes, it's 90% no. So I don't think that this is going to benefit them if a new variant comes out, because people have woken up and they understand that they've been fooled.
Yeah, unless, again, but it's not necessarily about the medical effects, right, on people, because no one's saying I can't go to a play date with you because we're still quarantining for COVID, right? People are out. They are living their lives. Right. It does feel like you can't put the horse back in the barn unless there's a way to stimulus, right? I saw a protest today where people were protesting record high rents. I'm not exactly sure where it was, and they had signs that said cancel rent. that is something that politicians have absolutely shown that they will do if they think they've got an emergency they can pin it on. So could it help the Democratic Party to start giving away tchotchke in the way of stimulus, rent, student loan pausing? Again, those things absolutely could happen.
Well, I mean, Biden's already at a deficit with the $600 that...
You don't think they could get it through the Congress?
Yeah, I don't think they can get it through the Congress. I keep waiting for the Justin Bieber T-shirt to come out. You know, the Bieber had that stroke, and so half of his face is now paralyzed. And so I'd want that on the T-shirt of saying, "Hey, I got the vaccine, and look what it did for me." The unfortunate, sad reality about this is the number of people between the ages of 16 and 40 that have suffered from myocarditis, heart attacks, strokes, miscarriages. You know, it's just, the young have really suffered, paid a price with it. And there's a lot of growing skepticism about why exactly do I need to get vaccinated against a disease that I'm still going to catch if I get vaccinated.
Yeah, and as Jimmy George did the other day, there's a whole no emergency, right? There's no emergency with this for children at all. And as I read 2 days ago, there's a report about polls among parents for young kids, and apparently that ship has sailed. Like, parents are saying, no, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it.
Yeah. So, and also the CDC in a report admitted that they were not paying attention to VAERS, like at all. Not paying attention to VAERS,
which is the victim or the adverse effects reporting network.
Right.
So you're not paying attention to the system you set up to tabulate adverse effects. Unbelievable.
Yet today the FDA approved the Novavax vaccine, I believe, and the CDC is expected to follow just a day or two after. But they still well, at least now they are publicly admitting that there is a risk of myocarditis with this and others. And at least now they're saying that, like, even in a Reuters article about it, this is printed now. So whereas before there was such deniability, right, now it is a part of the conversation we are allowed to have.
I wanted to talk about something Larry mentioned here. We'll finish up on this, which is the mask mandate question. So Dr. Jha was asked about this on the Today Show about renewed mask mandates as we head into the fall. And he did not dismiss that. In fact, he's leaning more towards this than anything else and saying it really falls down to the states. So listen to what he had to say about incoming mask mandates for the fall once again.
And that's why, especially in crowded airports, but on airplanes, I'm still wearing a mask. It's just a good way to protect yourself and to stop the spread to others.
Do you foresee any kind of mandates? I know you say you wear one. I've seen, some people wear them on planes. Do you expect any mandates in any indoor spaces as we look ahead?
The thing about mandates, Hoda, and I've been saying this for 2 years really, is that when it comes to, let's say, city or statewide mandates, these are really decisions made by local political leaders. Again, remember the science here is very clear. It's settled that wearing masks indoors in crowded spaces helps prevent infection, helps prevent spread. There might be cities or states that look at that and make a decision to move forward with the mandate. I know other places won't.
Yeah, there you go. So a renewed push for mask mandates once again. Unbelievable. I mean, in some areas, like there's still, we still have these mandates. So
there's still mandates here. Like if you go to any medical facility, like I got to go to the dentist tomorrow, I still have to wear a mask. Any kind of medical facility or anything like that, you have to wear a mask still.
Yeah.
I think there were certain school districts right up until the end of the year still mandating it. So they ended the school year. They didn't have it off early. It was all the way up until the end of the school year, and they're still assessing when the kids come back in the fall if they're going to make them wear masks coming back in the fall again, Larry.
And that is the absurdity of it, as David just pointed out, that you're standing there in the dentist's office with your mouth wide open, and all of a sudden now magically, because you've taken your mask off, you're not going to be passing germs or viruses. I mean, good God, and people see through this. They finally say, okay, wait a second, stop jerking me around, stop telling me that this wonderful pile of cow manure is actually chocolate mousse. Doesn't smell like it, doesn't taste like it.
Well, at least you went as far as to taste it. You'd be braver than me. Once it walked in my way, I'd be like, man, this thing is rotten. But
We're out of here.
Larry goes all in on it.
But it could just be a really bad smelling moose. I'm just going to taste it in case.
That's true too.
Well, we should end on that. We should end
really from a moose.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, the giant moose pie. We should wrap it up on that. Our guest has been Larry Johnson, ex-CIA analyst. Great to have him here for the hour discussing a lot of the top stories today. Where can people find more of what you do? You write, you cover, Larry?
I'm at sonar21.com, and I try to get an article up a day, just whatever the spirit moves me.
Whenever the spirit moves you. He's got great coverage over there. He's done some excellent coverage of what's been going on in Ukraine geopolitically, and his insights into the intelligence community are second to none. So our thanks to Larry for joining us here on the show. Thanks so much, Larry. Really great to have you here today.
Great to be with you all. Thanks a lot, Clayton.
You bet. Thanks, Larry. And before we wrap up, we do want to tell you about our final show sponsor. And then we're going to get to some Super Chats here, and we'll get everyone out on time. So we got some Super Chats. We get them fired up in just a second. But first, I want to tell you about our friends over at SoFi. With all the jargon flying around right now, it can be hard to figure out how to start investing. So whether you're eager to get started investing or you already know the ropes and you want to diversify your portfolio, SoFi has your back. No commissions on trading stocks and ETFs, plus no account fees or hidden fees. You can use fractional shares that start as low as $5 to buy brand name stocks, even if you don't have a couple of $1,000 laying around your house. You can actually get access to that very, very cheaply. Complimentary financial planners are ready to help with any questions, whether you're stuck or whether you need to get started, what to do next. They have a team that will help you. You can save for retirement with traditional Roth or SEP IRAs. Get hands-on with active investing, or let SoFi's #1 ranked automated investing tool, they call it the Robo-Advisor, take the stress out of building and managing a diversified portfolio. They will do it for you. That's right. You can set your own investment goals, saving for retirement, or building up for a down payment on a house or something else like that. Right now, they also have cryptocurrency too. Bitcoin, Ethereum, Cardano, 30 different coins that you can choose from. All of that inside of SoFi. So cut through the jargon and make investing easier with SoFi. Visit SoFi.com/redacted to learn how you can win up to $1,000 in free stocks when you open an account. That's SoFi.com/redacted. Brokerage and active investing products offered through SoFi Securities LLC, member FINRA, FINRA, SPIC, which is, how do you say that? Is that an initialism? SIPC. Check them out over at SoFi.com/redacted. All right. So good show today, guys. Thank you guys for joining us. We had some Super Chats coming in.
Yes.
We'll put them up here on the screen.
We have from Moroccan Insider, Emily W. and Brizzy864 with super stickers. Thank you.
Oh, Philip, before we move on to more Super Chats, we had that one. I forgot to do it at the top of the show. Do you have that image I wanted to show before we get deeper into the Super Chats? Yes, pop that one up there.
I sure do.
So this person wrote me about 2 hours ago and said, YouTube unsubscribed me from your channel, laughing my ass off. They hate the truth. And this happens, right? People like YouTube will unsubscribe you. So you have to, every month it happens. They just go through and they just decide that they're going to unsubscribe you from things that you've subscribed to.
They use this excuse that they're removing bots. But that we all know that you are not a bot.
Right. Yes. So this person was unsubscribed. Make sure you're subscribed. It's very simple to do. Just hit the little subscribe button, and then you can turn on the bell notification because we're live. Our show is live every Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern time. So just click on that little bell notification.
Yeah. If the button is red, you are not subscribed. So look right now on your phone or on your desktop. If that subscribe button is red, you are not subscribed. So click it.
All right. All right. Back to Super Chats. I just wanted to mention that.
All right. We got John Venturini with 1111. I think you called it that, Natalie, when we were live.
Yes,
Did anyone do the extra credit assignment last night and see the 1983 TV movie The Day After? Yep, couple that with the NYC nuclear PSA, and it's darn near scary right now.
The Day After.
Did you hear my theory?
No, I've never seen that movie.
So we got a strike, or I mean a claim, copyright claim yesterday because of that video, right?
Yeah.
So I thought to myself, how brilliant of them to make that video knowing that every media outlet was going to cover it, and then all they go is claim everybody's video, and they make a fortune.
Yeah, they claimed all the revenue from anyone that did a video on it. So even last night, my old colleague Tucker Carlson's show, we did it, and then a few hours later, it was on Tucker's show. They covered it. So if they filed a copyright claim on Fox News, then they got all that revenue from that video.
It worked that way.
So maybe that was their motivation. Like they're like, hey, let's make this because we know people are going to freak out, and everybody's going to be like, oh my gosh, what are they doing?
Oh, okay. So
David, talk to me. I was gonna say, David, talk to me after the show because I got a business idea between us. I think.
I got a PSA idea that I want to run.
Yeah, our video production is gonna be way better though.
Right.
Right. So what is the movie The Day After? I remember images from this. My parents watching this when I was younger.
Is that with Jake Gyllenhaal? Is it?
I remember seeing images of this, of like
Here's the
rolling.
movie poster.
It was like rolling fire.
Here's the movie poster. The
Well,
day after.
it looks more like this, right? So
They
it's
told
like
us it would be
mushroom
impossible for us to make this movie. They told us it would be impossible for you to watch it. We hope nothing is impossible. The Day After. Beyond.
No,
Is that
it's
the wrong one?
no, it's this one. It looks very much like rolling out fire, like people running from fire. I remember this as a child, like thinking about it and seeing it. And I don't know if my parents had a trailer on, or it's not the kind of thing that my parents would have watched.
Steve Guttenberg, was he in it?
Maybe. It looked like this, like people running from things like that, like rolling. Anyway, I was thinking of that too when we did this. So did this viewer 1111 say that they watched it, or it was on, or because they put it on it because they were inspired by the PSA?
Yeah, was it on TV last night, just on television? That's crazy.
He said, did anyone do the extra credit assignment last night and see the 1983 TV movie The Day After? I think he's just
saying.
I don't think it was on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here's the picture. If you guys want to take my screen here, perhaps the most important film ever made, The Day After, when war games are real.
That guy is not listening to the data. Like, look how far he needs to be in his house in the middle.
Right.
On his phone, on Twitter.
This person is there like taking a picture of it. Like, oh, I'm just going to take a picture of it.
No, they're not. I think they're running from it, because I remember seeing some images as I walked through the living room and then walked a little faster, because it was like people running.
Yeah,
in the
Steve
80s they would have. In the 80s, they would have ran from it, right? But now, in this day and age, there'd be girls doing
John
TikTok
Lithgow?
dances.
Yeah.
Yeah, John Lithgow, John Cullum, Jason Robards. Anyway.
Okay, thank you for bringing that up.
I'm gonna run a little to pump you up. People are doing their dances on TikTok with the nuclear thing behind them. Look at how pretty that is. Oh my
tonight's
gosh.
assignment then is Doctor Strangelove. For anybody that hasn't watched it, go watch that.
Yeah.
That I have seen.
That's a great movie.
Deepak, big news from RBI. Rupee is now enabled to trade internationally. This is being discussed nowhere. This is huge news. I hope you talk about it. Thank you. I live in the States.
I did look this up briefly during one of our breaks, and he's right. It seems like the Reserve Bank of India decided to allow imports and exports to be paid in India's currency. And so we've talked a lot here about, the Cold War around being the dominant currency. So anything that weakens trade using U.S. dollars is notable. And now India saying, okay, well, we'd like to be paid in our currency too. We don't want to pay exchange rates.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. Thank you for bringing that up. I will look further into that for the newsletter tomorrow.
Yeah, that's right. All right.
The Iranian Putin. I love fire my Iran. I don't know what the fire means, but I love my Iran.
Okay.
Iranian Putin. Ojan, R.I.P. Ivana Trump.
Yes, she was. She had a heart attack and died today. The former wife of former President Trump and mother of his oldest 3 kids. That's true. That news broke today.
Eric the Viking in our chat says, watch X-Files Season 10, Episode 6. You won't believe what you're seeing. I will watch that. I was a huge X-Files fan. I will try to watch that.
Tim Ote.
Season 10, Episode 6.
Yeah.
The New York PSA on how to survive a nuke attack scares me to death. Could a dirty nuke on New York be their last-ditch effort to maintain power and war on Russia?
Yeah, we kind of talked about that. I mentioned that with Larry, that comment. So
yeah,
to get that comment about the, what would happen would be devastating.
Vittorio Penza, we need to end WEF people. So there we go. That is all the super chats.
Okay.
All right.
Oh, nope, I'm sorry. One more. You're all truly fantastic. Blessings.
Oh, blessings to you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Yeah,
thank you
that's
so
a good
much.
one to end on.
Yeah, it's a great one to end on. Our thanks to Larry Johnson, who joined us today on the show for the full hour. We will not have a show tomorrow night live on Friday nights. We try to spend some time with our family. But we will have content for you this weekend, and we are back on Monday evening at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Please make sure you're subscribed. Turn on the little bell notification dingus so that you're notified when we are live. We do have a daily newsletter. It is, we're working on the branding change right now. It's saw the updates today. Right now, it's still called morninginvest.com, but if you sign up, it'll carry over. So if you sign up, it'll carry over to the new redacted morning newsletter with the new change of format and everything. But it's a daily newsletter. It's fantastic. You can read it in about 5, 7, 8 minutes over your cup of coffee in the morning. And we put
well, and they can actually go to redactedinc.inc now and see the new branding. So that you can sign up for the newsletter now at redacted.inc.
Oh, you can?
If you want to send it. Yes.
All right, so go to redacted.inc now and sign up for it as well. Whatever you like.
Yeah,
whatever
come on,
you
Philip.
fancy.
What's with that graphic?
Whatever your fancy is, I don't know.
Yeah.
Whatever you fancy. Go to redacted.inc. Right there. Oh, here it is on the screen. Take a look at this. There you go. Here's what happens.
There you go.
So if you go to redacted.inc, this is what you see right now. You'll go sign up for our free newsletter, and you can also become a VIP member. So sign up for the free newsletter that we work on every day. Natalie writes it. She works very hard on it, and we get it to your inbox first thing in the morning. So, all right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you back here on Monday. Be safe, everyone, and don't eat any chocolate mousse.
It's an inside joke.
Unless it smells good.
Right, unless it smells good. We'll see you, everyone. Bye.
Alright, so gonna try logging in. Last played 1,176 days ago. Literally in the same spot that I got banned. This is where the Halloween bots were. I'm still in the same outfit and everything. That's crazy. I owe a thank you to every person that left a comment on my last video saying that I should appeal my ban because Jagex has an automated system in place to unban accounts after enough time has passed. You were right. I have come back. Thank you.
Come on, Casey, get the story moving. That's what I feel like.
So look, I'm doing this filmmaking and storytelling class, and the first project was to make a spontaneous video. I thought it would be interesting to talk about my experience post-ban, what I've been up to for the last 3 years. And boy, am I glad I did that now because, well here, let me show you. If we search for comments containing the word appeal on this video, you can see there's all these kind people telling me Jagex will give you a second chance, automatically once enough time has passed. Some people were saying it's 2.5 years, others, most actually, were saying it's 3 years, and I had already known about this, but I always thought it was after 5 years. Now, here's the thing, I've appealed this ban 3 or 4 times over the years, and each time it has been denied. In fact, it's been 3 years and a couple of months, because this happened in October, and I was pretty sure that I had appealed it kind of quite recently, just a couple months ago. So when Rendy commented that I can do this, I actually replied back to him and said, nah, I can't. I've tried. My account must be marked by a JMod to not unban. Turns out I was wrong because later that night I dug out my shitty old phone that has the authenticator for Chrome on it, put an appeal in, and then I think it was within 48 hours I got this email back, and sure enough, they've given my account a second chance. By the way, if you've got a macro major ban in the past, this will probably work for you too. I've got a friend who had 2 accounts with botting bans on them. After hearing about me, he appealed it and same result, unbanned, pretty much automatically within 24 hours. I believe the response was, maybe it was 48 hours. I guess that's their policy now. It's a little sketchy, I'm not gonna lie, but it is what it is. Huh, wonder what that could be. Oh nice, someone's sharing my video.
Isn't he the one that got himself banned for making bots for Christmas?
Wait a minute, who's this?
I don't know.
Broke the game rules in pretty big ways, I think. Ah, yes. He got all his accounts banned for botting. At that point, he lost all credibility for me, at least.
So the reason I tell you all this primarily is because there's a small group of people like this guy that whenever people post my content, they basically discredit everything I've ever done for making those Halloween bots. Now, I don't think this is popular opinion. I mean, there's people on the opposite side of the fence too. Like, there's this one dude when it first happened on Reddit who wrote an entire essay, and he concluded that I did break the no botting rule, but I never infringed on the moral purpose of the rule. Thank you, Action Goose Man. Yes, I agree with that. But I think like when it first happened, 90% of people just thought I was an idiot. Like, what did you expect to happen? Of course you were gonna get banned. But that handful of people that really hate me for having done this, I'm worried they're gonna like be really vocal on Reddit for some reason and get my account banned again. So I just want you guys to know it's not creator favoritism. I'm not even in like the RuneScape creator Discord server. They've never invited me. I don't have any JMod friends, unlike a lot of other YouTubers. So yeah, no, that I just like completely got unbanned by their automated system, and I'm really happy about it. Alright, so gonna try logging in. Last played 1,176 days ago. Literally in the same spot that I got banned. This is where the Halloween bots were. I'm still in the same outfit and everything. That's crazy. Crumb in game. See, this is the thing that I really cared about on this account was the actual display name, because people would know who I am when they saw my name in game and come say hi from my videos. So, oh yeah, look, this is some stuff that we were giving the bots. Oh wow, oh my god, my fucking leather glove collection. I completely forgot about my leather glove collection. Okay, well, here's the big one, the bank. 77 mil. Huh, here's my quest cape that I won't be able to wear anymore. Yeah, here's my leather glove collection and all the other leather stuff I didn't even realize I had. Here's my gear. So this is kind of disingenuous, like I never had all this gear. Like, this is just like gear that I've had on my account, borrow and made placeholders. Farming stuff. I'm gonna have to do farm runs again. That sucks. Wow, is this it for skill capes? I actually have more 99s on flop, don't I? Oh yeah, and all the barbarian assault stuff. I'm happy to have that back, and level 5 rolls and everything. I'm gonna buy membership on this real quick. Oh yeah, alright, so we're officially a RuneScape member on this account again. Damn, some of the stats like I'm happy about, and other ones it's like, I don't want to redo. And the biggest thing that I miss is I don't have a POH. Like a nice one. Wonder if I had any Grand Exchange offers. Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, no, we don't need the chocolate bars anymore for the bots. That's long over. I mean, was I collecting 100,000 of those? Oh well. Same with these apparently, I don't know why. Now, when I transfer all of my gear and money over to this account from flop, can you imagine? I'm probably gonna get like an RWT ban. Like, watch. I'll actually get a real world trade ban. And then this account will be gone again, and all my GP. But wow, I'm not looking forward to doing farming again. Not looking forward to doing construction again. But at least they're all buyables. And the main thing is I have this username back. So pretty happy about that, to be honest. So whenever I get over my crippling CSGO addiction, I'm looking forward to doing like Dragon Slayer 2, Fremennik Exiles, the end of the Elf quest line, because on Crumb, the last quest I got to do was Monkey Madness 2. All the new ones weren't released yet, and on Flop, I was actually working towards getting the stats to go and do those quests. Questcape was one of the first things I ever did on Old School. school when it came out, and so I'm excited to get that cape back again, and I've heard the storyline to those quests is actually really good, so looking forward to those. Now, on top of that, like in my last video where I talked about how I currently play RuneScape, I basically say that I play it very casually and I don't go for goals. Will that change? Probably not, because life is busy, but also like when I was playing on Flop, I always had the thought in the back of my head like I might get Crumb back one day, so I don't want to put so much effort and time into this account because I know if I get Crumb back, I'm just gonna quit it. And what do you know, here I am, so that little voice is gone. So come time to make a bad life decision like getting 77 runecrafting, that little voice might not be there to stop me. Obviously the long-term goal in quotes is the max, but I don't have enough time to play realistically, and with my current playstyle, like it might take me literally a decade to get there, if ever. There will be new skills released by the time I even get close, I'm sure of it. But I am excited to do some like high-level bossing because Crumb is actually at a point where I can go and try out raids and things like this. Like I've never done raids, I've never done Theater of Blood, all this stuff. I never really had the opportunity to do it. In fact, I got my friend into the game and he always jokes that like just when he got his account to the point where we could go and do these things together is when I went and got myself banned, and it took him like a year or something to get up to those levels, so big oof. So yeah, that's it, officially unbanned. Hopefully I don't get rebanned. Not sure if people are gonna throw a stink on Reddit about it, but we'll see. I'll catch you guys in the next one. I might be making a huge mistake. This video could literally result in all of my accounts being banned and young Crumb, what amazing insight you had, because I broke a game rule and I got permanently banned because of it on all of my accounts. But it hasn't been the same experience. See, with Crumb, I had more time. Look, let me just show you. If you go back to the first videos on my channel, wait a minute. Okay, ignoring that one, I was doing videos on how to play RuneScape. Today, I'm going to be showing you how to make absolute bank on RuneScape 2007 through flip merchanting. Yeah, sometimes it got a little cringy, but mostly it was just guides for things that I was doing in-game. But present day, on my new account, Flop, that time's gone. I mean, by 2018, I was coming into adulthood, real life was beginning to take over, and combined with having lost all my progress, the motivation to do over what had already been done was out the door. Flop still doesn't even match Crumb in terms of stats or achievements. But I did start the game again with a new perspective. Less dedicated, less serious, and what I've uncovered is this whole other world, a different desire to log in. I now almost exclusively fuck around in RuneScape. Hey man, real quick, how would you describe my playstyle of RuneScape?
I would have to say that you've lived the sheltered, skilling lifestyle.
And sometimes that looks like getting Zortrox to do the door thing. Or sometimes it looks like this.
Bro, is that fucking blue d'hide?
Look, I'm not saying you have to teach World 2 e-daters how to dance to have fun. But for me, amidst the grind, sometimes just treating this game like a playground, like I did when I was a kid, brings me joy. I've had so many fun experiences just kind of hanging out. You see this guy dressed in the cow outfit? He took me on an hour-long adventure to get this damp tinderbox. A total waste of experience, but it was a pretty fun hour. I guess what I'm trying to say is, since being banned, I've learned that there's more fun to be had than just high-level bossing. RuneScape is really unique in that there's no right way to play, and for me, over the last 3 years, it's been more about the people here and less about making the numbers go up.
say that Crumb is a skiller.
Okay, wait, no. If I need more than that. If you had to break down the essence of how I play this fucking game, and don't be afraid to be mean, what would you say?
Hey guys, and welcome to my update. If used and the higher version of Varrock armor you have, the higher tier of ore this will work on. Then we have the golden mining suit obtained from the lava flow mine, giving you up to 6% bonus experience in total if you have all 5 pieces, because you get an additional set bonus of 1% bonus experience. And the great thing is it retains the Varrock armor effect. Next up we have the golem outfits, which there are multiple of, which give you 5% more critical hit chance, and again retains the mining suit and Varrock armor effects if owned. Now you have a Sapphire, Emerald and Ruby version, which if you combine all 3 can be combined into the Magic Golem outfit, giving you a multiplier on rock opportunities and giving you the ability to mine in the living rock cavern without the living rock creatures attacking you. These outfit pieces can be crafted with level 20 invention and 80 mining using that is very. And of course, a great time to be training mining if you don't like mining, a clan cap boost which can range from 3 to 6% depending on how many times you've capped in a row, and the Inspire Effort Relic can give you 2% bonus experience as well. Here's a massive list of pretty much anything useful for mining that you should know about, which I will cover, and every time I'm talking about a certain item that is very important, I'll show you an image with more information on it. This is just the overview image of useful items. First of all, we have any strength boosting items like potions or the Dragon Battle Axe spec. As every 10 strength levels, you'll get an additional modifier to your damage per swing. This is important for your experience per hour. The higher your strength level is, the higher your experience per hour will be. Next up are a variety of perks you can put on your pickaxe, if it is an augmentable pickaxe, which only a couple, I think about 4 of them are. If you are going to put perks on your pickaxe, here's a recommended perk setup, being Hone 6, Furnace 4, Fortune 3. Keep in mind that Fortune is an ancient invention perk. Next up we have Varrock Armor 1 to 4, which has a chance of mining 2 ores at the same time if used, and the higher version of Varrock Armor you have, the higher tier of ore this will work on. Then we have the golden mining suit obtained from the lava flow mine, giving you up to 6% bonus experience in total if you have all 5 pieces, because you get an additional set bonus of 1% bonus experience. And the great thing is it retains the Varrock armor effect. Next up we have the golem outfits, which there are multiple of, which give you 5% more critical hit chance, and again retains the mining suit and Varrock armor effects if owned. Now you have a sapphire, emerald and ruby version, which if you combine all 3 can be combined into the magic golem outfit, giving you a multiplier on rock opportunities and giving you the ability to mine in the living rock cavern without the living rock creatures attacking you. These outfit pieces can be crafted with level 20 invention and 80 mining using the gemstone fragments you start obtaining after level 70 mining. However, at the point you can craft the entire magic golem outfit from scratch, you will probably be over level 90 mining. Just something to keep in mind. If you are training beyond level 99 mining and you're wearing your mining skill cap, you'll have a 5% chance of receiving double ores on the core rocks ranging from copper all the way up to animica, and you'll get experience from that ore. There are also various familiars that boost your damage per swing as they boost your mining level, and the Water Fiend familiar has a 5% chance to double an ore and keep it in its own inventory, which can be useful for money making if you want to get more ores per hour, or you just want to get more ores per hour. Next up we have mining urns and the urn enhancer if you do have it from the Nomad's Elegy quest. Now these give you around a 20% boost in experience archery positions. Now this is very important. Pickaxes nowadays for mining are essential to upgrade. If you are mining, just be sure to upgrade your pickaxe whenever you can, as it is very, very important. For example, if you get to level 50, get yourself a rune pickaxe. If you want to wait to level 53 or so to get a rune pickaxe plus 3 and just skip the 1, 2 and so on upgrades, that's totally fine. That works. But be sure to get at least the core tier of pickaxe every 10 levels. You will save yourself so much time. Before we get into the
What's going on, guys? My name's Theoatrix and welcome to my complete level 1 to 99 mining guide. This video will take you through everything you need to know about mining, including the fastest ways to a little bit of time. Still, doing Dorix and then Dig Site will get you through from level 1 to 32 mining, which saves you a lot of time at lower levels because starting off mining is very slow. Now I'd like to get into the methods, starting off with the fastest way to level 99. Take note that these methods are really click intensive and are not recommended for every single person. Some of the alternative methods that I show later in the video may be more suited for you. Power mining is the fastest way to level your mining, and power mining means mining and not banking any of the ores, so dropping them all. It is faster, as I said, to do Dorix and Dig Site, but if you don't want a quest, you should start off from level 1 to 15 mining copper and tin, and a great place to do this is at the Lumbridge Swamp just when you get off Tutorial Island, and you'll need to mine 138 of either copper or tin to get to 15. At level 15 you unlock iron, and iron is actually the fastest training method all the way through to level 75. You should always be training at a location where there are 3 iron rocks in a triangle. There are 9 different places in the entire game that have a 3 rock area, and I've listed them all on the screen right now. While you're mining iron, you should have the Varrock armor equipped because that will increase your overall XP per hour. At level 15, you can expect about 30k XP an hour, but once you reach above level 60, your XP rate is about 60 to 70k XP per hour, and even higher if you're mining in the mining guild. My favorite place with 3 iron rocks is at the mining guild. The mining guild gives a +7 mining boost when you're in the area, so that's how your XP rates speed up a little bit when you're mining here, but with iron, you'll be instantly mining from about level 60. From level 75 all the way through to 99, the fastest way to train your mining is 3-tick granite. This is extremely click intensive, but it is the fastest way to train your mining and can get you up to 120k XP per hour with 99 mining. At lower mining levels, you'll be expecting under 100k XP per hour, but it's still faster than any other mining method. Since the quarry is in the desert, you will need some sort of desert protection so you don't get damaged by the heat. The Desert Amulet 4 makes you immune to all the desert heat, or you can bring water skins with the Lunar Spell Humidify to fill them up. Alternatively, if you have 99 hit points, you can wear a hit points cape and the regen bracelet, and that'll actually out heal all of the damage you take from the desert. In total, getting from 75 to 99 with granite will take you about 160 hours. Now I'd like to go into the AFK and alternative methods to 99 mining. As a really low level player, there's actually an AFK method that's available to you. After you do Rune Mysteries, you can start mining Rune Essence, and they give really low XP each, but it only requires level 1 mining. Basically, if you click on the Rune Essence rock once, you'll automatically mine a full inventory, which means you get 140 XP per inventory, and you can AFK for about 2 minutes. So Rune Essence is a great option for low levels that are playing on mobile at work, or for people that are doing homework while they train. From level 30 to 99 mining, the most AFK method you can do is the Motherlode mine. Mining in the Motherlode is a very common way to get to 99 since it's so chill and you don't really need to worry about much. The XP rates at the Motherlode mine are a lot slower, where the maximum XP rate is just over 50k an hour at level 99 mining. At really low levels, you can expect about 15k an hour, but as you level up and eventually unlock the Prospector outfit, your XP will get a decent boost. At level 72 mining, you can pay 100 golden nuggets to use the upstairs levels of the mine. Up here, there are better ore veins that last longer than the ones downstairs, so it makes it even more AFK than before. Dropping all the pay dirt is faster experience, but at higher mining levels, you're far better off putting your pay dirt and getting some rewards because you can make very decent money getting to 99. At level 70, you unlock the volcanic mine, and this is a method that a lot of players choose to do since it's far more enjoyable than the quarry, and it gives the second best mining XP rates in the game. You need 50 mining to start with 150 kudos at the Varrock Museum, but it's very recommended to start at level 70. With a decent team, you can get up to 90k XP per hour here at a very high mining level, but if you want to take it one step further, players can use alt accounts to really boost their mining XP to over 100k XP per hour. The volcanic mine is on Fossil Island, which means you have to have completed the Bon Voyage quest to be able to partake in it, and additionally you take quite a lot of damage in the minigame, so be sure to check out a full guide on the minigame before you start. Now I'd like to go into the profitable mining training methods. Now, just recently with the Revenant Cave updates, red topaz gems are now over 5k each. There's a bank deposit box nearby that you can use to store all of your gems, and you can expect a maximum of about 65k XP per hour at 99. It's not recommended to go past level 75 when you're training at gemstones, because the next method I'm about to show is more profitable and faster XP per hour. Wearing an Amulet of Glory while mining any rock will increase the chance of getting a gem while mining, so whenever you're training at gem rocks, you should always be wearing an Amulet of Glory just to make a bit of extra money. There's also a downstairs portion of the Shiloh Village gem mine which you can access after you do the hard Karumja Diary task. The gem mines aren't usually that packed, and there's usually a free world of the upstairs area, and on average the coins you can make per hour here are about 300 to 400k an hour. Now at level 75 mining with 100% Lovakenge favor, you have access to the Blast Mine, and the Blast Mine allows you to get ores that you can't mine that are 10 levels above your mining level. So at level 75 mining, you should start this minigame and you can start obtaining Runite ore. Without Runite ore involved, you'll be getting really low XP rates and really low profit, making the Blast Mine not worth doing. You can use the Dragon Pickaxe special attack to boost to level 75 mining, and then you have a chance of getting the level 85 rocks, but this is only temporary. The profit rates compared to gem rocks are a lot better. At level 80, you'll get about 60k XP per hour and make over 400k GP per hour. At higher mining levels, you can earn up to 700k coins per hour and 70k XP per hour, making it one of the best and most viable training methods in the game. Keep in mind that this is very click intensive as well, somewhat similar to granite. The main difference here is that you're exchanging the better XP rates of granite for some money per hour. The next method, unlocked at level 85, is just simply mining runite ore. As of recently, there have been a few additions to the game with new rune rocks, and now the Myths Guild has rune rocks, and also the new Inferno area has a set of 3 rune rocks. There are other locations that are in the wilderness to mine rune, but these are not suggested whatsoever. Going from level 85 to 99 mining, just mining runite ores, you'd make approximately 880 mil. The XP rates are horrendous, but the total profit is insane. The final method I have for you guys is mining amethyst crystals, and while the XP per hour isn't very high, this is a great method for alt accounts or for people that want some semi-AFK mining training. Amethyst is located all the way at the end of the mining guild, and getting to 99 from 92 when you unlock them will make you a profit of 100 mil. The mining guild +7 boost does not allow you to mine amethyst at level 85, however the dragon pickaxe special attack does work for mining them. Before I show you guys the summary of the video, I quickly wanted to talk about the mining pet. The best drop rate for the mining pet is when you're mining runite ores. The volcanic mine also gives a very good drop rate for the pet, but I actually did a calculation video on this, and the best way to get the mining pet is through gem rocks. So if you really want the pet, you could go for 99 at gem rocks and make quite a bit of money in the process. Now, to quickly summarize the guide, the 2 fastest methods in the game are granite and the volcanic mine. Granite is very click intensive and a little bit faster than the volcanic mine, but the volcanic mine provides a lot more profit in the long run. For AFK training, you can do low level rune essence mining and then move on to the motherlode mine for some decent AFK XP, and then for profit, gemstones are decent XP and pretty good money at this point in time. The blast mine is great money and XP, and runite is the most profitable way all the way.